Hey everyone. In this video, I want to do a demo or a comparison really of another ITSM platform called GLPI. It's an acronym for a name in French. I'm not going to try to pronounce the name in French, but it's made by a company called Teclib, which I hope I'm pronouncing correctly, a French company. And it's one of the few open source ITSM software platforms out there. Uh, so I'm excited to get into it. I'm excited to show this. But before I do, I want to mention that this video is actually part of a series, uh, basically a series that I'm doing, comparing the 13 different ITSM platforms that I saw at Service Management World in Orlando this year, comparing those platforms to Cherwell. So coming from a Cherwell background, what can we expect from these different platforms? And in what ways might they remind us of Cherwell? In what ways might they confuse us compared to Cherwell? Um, and that way you can make an informed decision about uh, what the right tool for you is. This also comes with a companion report, which you can sign up to receive when it's published. At time of recording, it is not published, but as soon as it is published, you'll get an email uh, containing the report, and you can sign up to be on that list by the link in the description down below. There's also a link down in the description to the entire playlist um, of all of the videos, kind of reviewing these tools and comparing them to Cherwell. Uh, Another thing that is worth mentioning is that Synapse Software built a tool called CORTEX that helps everyone moving off of Cherwell in their journey to migrate to whatever tool they're going to. Basically, it's an archive tool for Cherwell data. So you get a copy of your Cherwell database, and you can use our tool Cortex to view all of that same data just the way it would look in Cherwell. So then you're free to move on to whatever ITSM platform you decide to go to, and plan for exactly the future that you want and not have to worry about what you're doing with all of your historical data. And with that, we have a weekly meeting, a weekly conversation called the Cortex Users Group. There's links to that down in the description below as well to get invited to that. So let's talk about Teclib and GLPI. So as I mentioned, it is a completely open source uh, ITSM platform. Actually, it's ITSM and uh, IT asset management, which I thought was pretty cool. And as we get into actually showing what it looks like, to me, it felt pretty straightforward, and I think you'll see that. So first off, here's the website for the company. It's Teclib, Teclib dash edition. I think this apostrophe is actually part of their name, but it's not part of the domain name. So it's teclib-edition.com. This is the company. Uh, and as far as I can tell, their primary or possibly only product is this GLPI platform. And here's the GitHub page. Again, totally open source, so you can see all of the source. It's I think um, the GNU public license, the GPL v2 is the license it's released under. Um, oh, version 3. Okay, there are some pieces that were under GPL v2, but it looks like the main application is GPL v3. Um, and here you can see what the acronym actually stands for. I think translated, it was basically IT, free IT system or something like that, something along those lines. Um, but that's what GLPI stands for. And here's some information about it. Being an open source product, a lot of the information is in the GitHub page, and there's actually a fair amount of documentation. So here's yeah, GLPI plugins.readthedocs.io. So they have documentation on their plugin system. which is actually really nice. So in just a second, I'll actually jump into the platform and show you some of the things that some of the highlights that I found. Um, but being open source, obviously, you can run it on your own platform, and there's instructions in the GitHub pages to to show you how to do that. But they actually have a cloud as well, or I guess basically a SaaS infrastructure for it. So the demo that I'm showing is from their cloud instance. It's glpi-network.cloud. And you can find this via their website as well. You get a 45-day demo, which is so far the longest that I found. Most platforms give you like a 30-day demo or something like that. Um, but here you get a 45-day demo, and it's the full thing. So let's actually just go to the beginning. As you can imagine, there's all the things you'd expect to see. So there's dashboarding, but the thing that I've been playing around the most, and the thing that I really wanted to see, uh, knowing that it's an open source tool, was how easy is it to extend, right? From Cherwell, we are kind of used to, we take for granted the idea that you can define business objects and you can define forms and you can infinitely customize all of that stuff. So one of the first things I wanted to do was let me customize a form. So let me show you what that looks like before we go any further. So I'm going to go down to assistance. Now, again, being a French product, there is some wording in here that might seem strange coming from a native English speaker. But once you kind of get a feel for where everything lives, it it feels pretty intuitive. So assistance, and then we'll go to create ticket, uh, and we can see there's kind of this main form area, and then some tabs. Actors, different people involved in it, items. This is where you'd link CIs and that sort of thing. SLAs, linked tickets. Nothing crazy. And this is everything. This is all out of the box. I didn't make any changes here. And then kind of general ticket stuff. And you'll see down here, obviously, this is not something that you would see in an ITSM platform, African or European, right? And this is a custom drop down, and the choices being, and I'm sorry, my face is in the way. Let's fix that. You can see African, European, or I don't know, right? Those are the only uh, reasonable answers to that question, and you can choose one. And this is totally custom. So how did I do that? Let me bring my face back before I forget. So I actually had to install a plugin, and you can go down to plugins here, and there's this Discover tab, which is basically if you're familiar with WordPress or basically any system like that. I don't know if I mentioned this is written in PHP, so that might be another reason that it kind of reminds me of WordPress. Um, but there's an extensive plugin ecosystem, 70 plugins. I feel like that's a lot for an ITSM platform. WordPress is used by hundreds and thousands and tens and hundreds of thousands of sites on the internet. So there's a lot more plugins. But for an ITSM system to have 70 plugins, and obviously that means there's also support for your own integrations. I feel like that's a pretty strong offering. So I searched for field. Um, and this Fields plugin, you can see here, it's GPL v2 is the license, and it's created by Teclib, by the company themselves. So this is an extension to GLPI that allows you to create custom fields. Uh, and you can see there are some other things that you can do as well. Form creator, I played around with a little bit, but we won't get into it in this video in the interest of time. Generic objects management. Um, this lets you do more with some of the objects in the system, but it looks like that's actually a third-party developer. Um, so you have lots of options here, and it's surfaced directly in the application so you can see exactly what you can do, what all the things that are possible. Installing this fields plugin gives you this additional fields menu under setup. And you can see I've created one slightly confusing thing is clicking additional fields actually brings you to the list of something called blocks, not fields. So Halo is the video we just did. In Halo, to add new fields to a form, which I didn't show in that video because I showed a bunch of other stuff. In Halo, you create custom fields and then you associate them with ticket types. There was also something called field groups, I think, which might be a little more similar to blocks here. But GLPI, the way it works is you create blocks and you associate a block with, okay, so what search fields, but you create a block and you say where it goes. And this has to be set when you create the block. You can't go back and change this after you've created the block. I suspect it has something to do with the way it's created in the database. I'm not entirely sure. But for one reason or another, you can't go back and change this after you've created it. This goes into the form, which, as we saw, was that main section on the right-hand side. And the associated item type is tickets, which is basically what thing under this menu should it be associated with? What form should it go on? So I said tickets because I wanted it to show on this ticket. Um, the, anything here is, well, I guess, problems, changes. I think planning and statistics might be under there as well. And actually, if we go to add, we can see, uh, the options here: add tab, insert in the form, or insert in the form of a specific tab. And then here, you can see what it's associated with. So under assets, you have all of these different types of assets, which all have their own forms. And then assistance, tickets, problem changes, recurrent tickets, and that sort of thing. Uh, and even some of the other sections. So basically, any one of these forms is customizable via these blocks. So if I go back to this block that I created, I added it specifically to tickets. Most of the demos that I'm going to be doing are going to be focusing on the incident form just to keep the scope small and to keep the videos relatively short. Within those blocks, then you create fields. And in this case, I created a field with the label African or European. It's a drop-down type. I think this means can you select more than one value? That's the way I understand it anyway. Um, I could have read the documentation, but I didn't. Um, you can select a default value. I didn't. Um, and then somewhere around here, there is actually a list of values. And I found it once, and I can't find it right now. Um, yeah, I'm not entirely sure where it ended up. It might be, we go back to, so fields, African or European. Ah, uh, nope. Well, there might be rough edges here. I know there is some way. Oh, uh, is it here? No, this is how you add items. I thought there was a way that I could see items. I guess you can see what items are here, um, just in this drop down here. But if you want to add an item, uh, you can add it through that plus sign, uh, and you can actually nest these options as well. So to create, for instance, um, where was it? Uh, like this sort of drop down, right? You can nest things underneath other options. So this block only has that field because I only added that one field, but you could certainly add more than one. You can add a new field here and you get all different types of fields: date, time, GLPI item, which is um, anything in basically anything that you see in the menu here. So all of these items are what are called GLP items. Um, More or less corresponds to business objects in Cherwell, I would say. And then, of course, your normal data types: text, rich text, number, URL. Drop down is what I chose. Yes, no, so Boolean basically. Date, and then you could also select, uh, or you could say this particular um, this particular field is a way to select computers or something, any type of GLP item. So a few different ways to configure a bunch of different things. Uh, Seems pretty flexible, pretty versatile. Once I figured out how this worked, I was pretty impressed at what I could do, and it basically turned. We go back to this create ticket screen. It turned something that felt kind of static and clunky into something that I could see, easily, modifying to my heart's content, and you could too. Um, there are, looking through the documentation and looking through some of their forums, there are ways to conditionally show fields, so you can do some logic similar to how you might have configured fields on a BizUp forum in Cherwell, and it's all more or less no code, very similar to Cherwell. So I think from that perspective, you'll feel right at home, even though it's different. A lot of the capabilities still exist. Um, One other thing that I played around with, um, I didn't do much with dashboards and some of that stuff, but I did play around with um, email, which they actually refer to as receivers. So again, not everything is necessarily the word you would expect to use in English. In this case, they use receivers to refer to basically mailboxes. The icon helps; it looks like an inbox. So I created a mail um, configuration connecting to my dev setup, um, and yeah, so you can actually kick it to say get the email right now. Um, and what it ends up doing is creating tickets from the email. So this ticket was created from an email message. And like many systems, it just creates a ticket with the title. Uh, it populates the title from the subject of the email, populates the body or the description from the body of the email, um, and then uh, you can do whatever you need to with the ticket. So it's not as powerful as Cherwell's email and event monitor, um, but I mean, realistically, very few email processing systems are. Um, I do hope to see some of the other ITSM platforms with a little more advanced email monitors or email processing functionality. I don't remember if I put it in the Halo video, but Halos is actually a little bit further beyond this. That being said, it's entirely possible that there's a plugin that does more of this, or you could certainly build a plugin that provides a more sophisticated email processing functionality. Um, so all in all, I'm really impressed with GLPI. I think it's a really strong contender, especially if you're looking for an open source solution or you're looking to self-host. Excuse me. You're looking to self-host. Um, you're looking for something that's extensible that you can really build on top of. If you really want to write some PHP, it's written in PHP, so there's that. Uh, there are a bunch of plugins. Uh, it seems like there's a pretty good, sort of developer environment support for that. Um, uh, and it actually in my opinion, it looks really good, especially for an open source solution, right? Open source solutions are typically known for, not really thinking about the UI. They're built by developers for developers. Um, but this, even though there are some quirks about the interface, it does feel really polished and really well put together, and very internally consistent. So, kind of once you understand the design language that it's using to piece things together and to uh, uh, organize things, it all just kind of makes sense. I definitely felt as I was playing around with it, the first maybe 20 minutes or so, I really felt like I was fumbling through it, and then I kind of realized how everything was put together and what the different tabs and sets of tabs meant, and then it just got much easier to use. So I think you'll find the same thing. There might be a little bit of a learning curve, both from the administration side and from the agent side. Um, a little bit of a learning curve when you first get into it, but once you use it a couple times, it'll just feel like second nature. So GLPI is definitely worth checking out. Again, um, if you want to get a copy of that report when gets released, find the link down in the description, get on the list, and I'll send it to you as soon as it has information about all 13 platforms in it. Um, and feel free to add comments down below if you've used GLPI and you have thoughts, opinions. If there's anything that I got wrong or you think might be worth contributing, definitely leave a comment down below. And stay tuned for the next one. The next one chronologically is actually by request. It's going to be Top Desk. If you're watching this on the playlist, the next one might be something different because I'm probably going to order the playlist in the same order that it is in the report, and I think Top Desk is actually somewhere else on the list. Um, so thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I'll see you in the next one.